you came across his channel, right? So you were introduced to that, and that's kind of where that
Mhm.
next blip in your life for the last 2 years. Why even jump into it? Why jump into doing something? I'm not going to say something similar to Cameron, because I feel like Cameron still does it differently. Um, but why even get into the building of bikes, or even the rebuilding of these older bikes at all? Like, why even try?
Yeah, so I feel like this is going to be a long story, so I'm going to
We
try
got
to
a couple
short,
minutes, so we're good.
I'm going to try to shorten it up as much as possible. So I have a finance and accounting background. I don't have a background in creative content or filming or editing or even being on camera or anything like that. As a little kid growing up in school, my face would get beet red every time I would have to speak to the class. Even sitting at my desk, like if the teacher called on me, like I'd always be the kid with the head down, like don't call me, and then they'd call me, and my face would just get beet red. So it's definitely something outside of my comfort zone. And I was in a comfortable position at my current job, and I was like, I'm just looking for something more. Like, just wasn't completely thrilled with what I was doing. It was getting the job done, but I wasn't like thrilled about where my life was going. So I came across Cameron, and kind of like I mentioned earlier, I was like, man, it looks like something that I could do. It looks like really fun. Ended up just really working at that while I was still at my other job. And I've always had the passion for dirt bikes. I grew up with a competitive background playing hockey and lacrosse. When I stopped playing hockey and lacrosse at Division One level, then I started racing dirt bikes. So I didn't race dirt bikes until later in my life, I guess, late teens, early 20s. So it's just been this biggest passion of mine. And, people always talk about trying to find a job where you wake up every day and it doesn't feel like work. That's really what I tried to make out of this, starting really from the ground up.
So you're confident to say that when you wake up, you're like, your feet hit the ground, you're excited to get out into the garage.
I think about dirt bikes 24/7, 365.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's just one of those things where I've had this passion about it and for it, and I just really wanted to make something of it. It's not the easiest thing to do,
Okay.
but yeah, it's something that I completely love. And I think that's one of the biggest things. You have to love it in order to do it.
Yeah, I get that. I can totally see that, because I think a lot of people, they have a drive, like a passion for what they want to do, but I don't think
Yeah.
it's enough that they'll actually stop what they're doing and just dive into it. I don't think there's
Mhm.
enough people that really do it. And at that point, did you feel that, it was kind of a risky move to like jump into it and leave your job and come do something like this? Because now you're an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
You are a content creator. You don't work for anybody except for yourself.
Mhm.
You have to create your own content. Like you said at the very early on, like you have to be the one filming. You have to be the one doing the work. You have to be the one with the knowledge to do the rebuilds and have the tools to do it. So you wear a
Yeah.
lot of hats. Now, a lot of people find that to be kind of a risky move. How did you calculate that? How did you calculate leaving your job that you had a consistent income to go into something that potentially there was a risk?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, my wife is actually the one that was telling me to leave my job long before I actually did, because one of the only ways to be successful at something like this, or just even anything entrepreneurial, is to go all in, and be 100% engulfed into it, because there's a lot of things like family that come into play too. And, if you're working that normal 9 to 5 job and then trying to hustle and create your own business, I guess you're going to have to do that for a little while. But in order to live this balanced life, you're going to have to make a sacrifice here or there. So it's either, your job where you feel comfortable, or you're sacrificing family. And it just came to a point where I didn't want to sacrifice, time with my family. We're very fortunate. My wife crushes it as well. We just had a baby back in January, so he's a little bit over 8 months old.
So that's two then. You have two kids?
Just one kid.
Okay. Man.
Yep, just one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, long before we had him, I went full time on it. But then once we had Griffin, my son, it was like, well, we can either pay a nanny, or we can have you raise our child. So a lot of people don't know is actually I'm a full time dad as well. So along with, creating my own business, it's a hard balance. But at the end of the day, I'd rather be the one raising our child, but Yeah, there's just a lot that goes into it.
I like that dad perspective, and I totally screwed up
Yeah.
the age because I came across a picture of your son sitting on the bike behind you,
Yep.
and he has like this full mouth of teeth, and I was like, he's not 8 months old. There's no way he's eight
He's
months old. Yeah,
he's had 8 teeth for a couple months now.
because I have a 5 month old, and I don't think he's growing teeth yet. I don't know. I get to look in that little dude's mouth and see what's going on. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I'm like really confused. I'm like, wait a minute, he can't be that old. Thinking it was like maybe a sibling's kid or something like that.
Yeah. But long story short, I mean, you have to make sure that, your family is financially comfortable in order to go out and, be able to start a business like this. There's trade-offs, there's hard decisions that you need to make. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you not willing to sacrifice in order to go all in? And I was the one that was hesitant of going all in at first because, as humans, we just want to be supporters of our family. So I wanted to make sure that I was in a position to be able to support my family in all ways that I could before going in on the business.
I want to pick a couple of things apart on that. I think is really cool. For number one, people listening, what Greg is really picking apart in like success is you got to go all in, right? There's always going to be the thought of risk and what if it doesn't work? But when you have somebody like Greg's wife, Sam, right?
Yes, Sam.
When you have somebody like Sam backing you up and saying, "Hey, you got this and I believe in you." Once you actually have somebody that believes in you,
Hmm.
man, there's nothing that can hold you back because you're able and the cool thing is we're capable of doing so much more than what we believe we can. And it's little nudges from those that believe in us that actually give us that confidence. And truth be told, it might not work. It very may well not work. But do you want to really go through your life and say, I had these ideas and thoughts and I just didn't give in. I didn't do them because I was too scared and
Yeah.
then regret that. Like, oh, what if things could have been completely different? And coming from the financial background, you completely understand what risk is in the industry, in the financial industry. You understand mitigation of risk. And so it can be a big key factor of actually should we dive into it or not. But you had a catalyst in your life, which I think is really key to the progression and actually being successful. Like I think a lot of people think, oh, well, being a stay-at-home dad is not cool or whatever. Honestly, I think it's a honest personally, I think it's a beautiful thing to actually see a dad take care of his kids because there's a bond that's created. There's always going to be a bond between a kid and a mom. I've never been able to understand how I can get the same bond, and I never will be able to get the same bond as my kids do with my wife. But there's a bond between a father and a child, son or daughter, doesn't matter, that can be curated and become very, very special.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool that you're doing that, Greg, and that you've taken the time and your wife's been pushing you to kind of accomplish those two things. So, dude, you're doing a great job.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. We had a part-time nanny for a while where she was able to help us out for a couple days a week, so I could really, get in the garage and work on bikes, film, etc. And she just had to put in her 2 weeks about a month and a half ago now, and it was great to have her. But it was actually harder for me to focus on those 2 days that we had her, knowing that those were like really my 2 days to get a bunch of work done. But now when I'm watching him full time, I have a better set schedule basically around his nap times. So I know what I have to get done when he's down sleeping. And otherwise, you have to be, like you said, like I said earlier, you have to be 100% into whatever you're doing. So when I'm watching him, I'm 100% watching him. I try not to have any other distractions come up when I'm watching him. And it's likewise when I'm doing the work too. Otherwise, you're not going to be present in the moment. And I think that's one of the most important things too. So now that I watch him full time, I'm able to get a stricter schedule on myself and
that.
stick to that. And I find myself getting more work done watching him rather than not watching him. It's crazy.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I love this
Yeah.
mindset that you have. I think it's definitely important for people to kind of hear that and understand, okay, well, Greg, he's this influencer on social media. He's building this YouTube account, like just to kind of hear this mindset because this is what it takes to get to there.